Welcome to the next chapter of our what I'm calling the Pressing Towards the Source Point collection of interviews. Thanks to our good friend Dirk Manning, has been hooking us up with the creators that he's signed to Source Point Press. And so today we have Josh Ross, who has a book called Divinity called Shotgun, and let's bring him in and find out about himself and the book. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
It's going well.
All right. Well, before we get started talking about the book, I like to kind of see where people came from, are coming from as both a reader and creator. So tell us about your early experiences reading comic books. Do you maybe remember the first one you read or anything like that? And then how you transitioned into, creating your own.
Careful, some of these questions I go on long, rambly answers, but yeah,
Go as long as you want.
discovered comic books. I mean, I guess everybody kind of discovers comic books as a kid. Definitely was an '80s kid. Grew up watching GI Joe and Transformers, He-Man, all that kind of stuff. As a young kid, thought I was going to get into animation, and then kind of realized that animation was generally a team of hundreds of people, and it was a lot of work. And at some point, probably had read a few comic books here and there. Really kind of noticed earliest comic books were probably hitting like a gas station. God, I can't even remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was like a spin-off of Iron Man type thing, but I remember picking it up and it was probably
War
25
Machine,
cents.
maybe?
No, I'd have to do a Google search. I think it was
Okay.
honestly a woman in a suit, but I don't remember. But I remember thinking the armor was really cool. I've always been a fan of robots and stuff like that. So I remember, picking up comic books at the gas station as a kid with my allowance here and there. But I really think it was like Mignola's Wolverine, and then it was like early Spider, like I guess not early Spider-Man, but like McFarlane era Spider-Man, Eric Larson, some of that X-Force, that kind of stuff. All of a sudden, really kind of fell into comic books and said, "Hey, I can make my own comic books. I don't need to be part of a team of 300. I can, with some paper and a pen, I can start telling the stories I want to do." And really, it's never stopped. So like 40 years later, I'm still drawing comic books, and it's kind of just a part of me. But and it's gone through the gamut of Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee to indie books and Charles Byrne and Jeffrey Brown, and you know I go through it all. Magnola, from indie stuff to the obscure stuff to the foreign stuff to the mainstream superhero stuff. I don't know. I just have a strong love for comic books, but
Okay. So why don't we jump right in and talk about the Divinity College Shotgun, because it sounds like it has a little something for everyone.
a little bit. It does have a little bit. I do have a preview copy. I Every time I make a book, I do go send, like order one copy for myself, just as like a test proof to kind of look at and kind of go through it, make sure everything kind of works and everything. Yeah, I mean, this is the fourth graphic novel since 2020 that I've put out, and the third I guess it's my fourth one with Source Point. I've been working with Dirk Manning for 20 plus years now. Yeah, Divinity Call Shotgun is a little bit of like everything I love in one book. It's got angels, demons, talking animals, violence, humor, fart jokes, heaven, hell. It's kind of just got it all with some like existential conversations and characters you still kind of care about. Like it kind of started as just an excuse to sort of draw something fun. I guess years of, not that I'm saying like Dirk Manning stories aren't fun, because most of his stuff is fun, but like I was a kid who was like, I want to draw monsters and action scenes and Spider-Man. And then I started working with Dirk Manning, and a lot of it is like mood and talking heads and conversational stuff. And so it made me a much better artist. It made me learn how to draw people better. It wasn't just Rob Liefeld feet and people throwing punches and explosions. how to actually start telling a story. And so, yeah, Divinity Calls Shotgun was kind of like, how do I kind of just have fun with a book? A little bit of Preacher, a little bit of Hellboy, a little bit of Kill Bill, a little bit, it's got kaiju and yeah, all kinds of just doing to draw monsters and really have no limit. And then as I started drawing it, it kind of started reining in my universe a little bit more. And while it's still absurd, I think it feels kind of like a unified, like there's sort of ground rules to it. Like my angels, I kind of did more a style in like old Renaissance paintings and statues. You know, I try to curly hair and robes, and even when God cops show up, they might be wearing like you know, a police helmet. They might look like motorcycle cops, but they're still wearing robes and stuff like that. So it kind of still has a sort of groundedness to its absurdity. And then, you know, I wanted some meat on it. It, you know, it's fun to have monsters fighting, but you still need to have somebody to root for. You need some characters. So then it started kind of like evolving from there. And then it became like a little more existential. And what is the point of being human, and what does it mean? And, you know, like, you know, just, you know, doesn't answer a lot, or, you know, have a lot of deep questions, but it has some conversations and some characters besides just watching, you know, monsters fight each other and stuff. So, but yeah, it's just an excuse to just kind of, to a certain degree, get it all out there, just have some fun.
So, kind of tell us the elevator pitch and who the main characters are, and the overall, you know, threads.
It's got, I guess, essentially 3-4 main characters. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers because some of them are sort of some of the twist kind of things that kind of happen. But as you know, you got to obviously sell your book. The easiest way for me to describe it is like, think of a Santa Claus movie, and like a Tim Allen Santa Claus movie where there's always only one Santa Claus at a time, but there have been multiple Santa Clauses. So, you know, what if I tell you that we're up to God 157? So there's always only one God, but when God retires, when God dies, there's a new God. And so that's kind of the start of the book. You learn that God has recently died. This guy, Mitch, is supposed to be the next God. He doesn't know it yet. He wakes up in the morning with pink eye, and you get a little description of him just kind of like being the nicest guy on the planet. And then things start in motion where, like, you know, we've gone a couple days without a God, and hell knows that, you know, they've kind of, I guess the devil kind of is like, this is my chance. I want to sort of like take out the new God. Before Mitch becomes God, he hires a hitman to take out this potential new God. And then from there, everything kind of goes crazy. Yeah, there's like the heaven souls, like it's heaven soul, hell soul. You know, like there's always one God and there's always one devil, and that's sort of the balance of the universe. And by these actions, the balance of the universe is thrown out of whack, and eternity has to take on a human figure and comes to Earth, and she joins up with a fallen angel, and they go on this crazy road trip to sort of restore the balance of the universe. And I guess that is the basic sales pitch. And so then that puts them in heaven, and that puts them in hell, and confronts multiple characters as they try to restore the balance of what has always kind of been there. So.
And the book is coming to Kickstarter.
It is on Kickstarter right now. It launched as of tomorrow. It'll be a week. So it's been on Kickstarter for a week now. It still has about 3 weeks to go. Yeah, we reached our goal within 24 hours, just passed our first stretch goal today. So it is up and running and looking for backers.
So what are you offering as reward levels for the campaign?
The stretch goals start with, we just hit every book comes with an autographed book plate. Then we'll move to everyone gets a sketch, like a remark sketch on their autographed book plates. Then we move up to art prints. I've got an art print from Jeffrey Brown. I have an art print from an artist who goes by Ian Biederman, who goes by Wonky Tiger. He has done some covers for like King Venom and Marvel, worked in heavy metal, does a lot of, primarily a tattoo artist, but has a very funky sci-fi traditional kind of style. And then we've got some stickers, and yeah, we'll just kind of see where we get up to there for bonus stretch goals. In terms of rewards, I've got t-shirts, there's a soundtrack, I have 3D printed figures of Hannah, who is the fallen angel from the comic book. Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. But yeah, we've got quite a few different stretch goals, bonus things. Yeah, extra art, prints, stickers, t-shirts, music. Yeah.
So it sounds like this isn't your first Kickstarter that you've done. You
This is my
know the
second.
drill. Oh.
Yeah, this is my second personal Kickstarter. I have done, at this point, working with Dirk Manning and SourcePoint, he has run most of his own campaigns, but I have been a part of them by doing the additional sketches, artwork, bonus stuff, commissions, things like that come along with it. But yeah, this is my second one that I'm running start to finish.
So as the writer and creator, do you have one of those that you prefer, or how do you balance? Do you find it hard finding a balance between the two?
Between like writer, creator, illustrator.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, illustration. I love to draw. I can't stop drawing every day. I got to draw. I would say that is my pure love. Creating a book that's kind of my own baby. There's something special about that. It's a whole different level of stress, but there is something cool about holding something to say like, hey, I wrote and illustrated and scripted and put this whole thing together. I mean, this book was essentially all me, other than, Colin Johnson has done colors on this book. He has colored my last couple books through SourcePoint, and then, some editing through Mike Negan. But it is fun to sort of have a baby that I sit down and do it all. Like there's something nice about having a script by Dirk Manning and working a little bit by committee when you have other writers and editors, but it does take some of the stress off. It's just like, you told me what to do, I drew it, I can go to sleep at night, or now I stress about every little aspect of it. But I do love the process of kind of having my own book. I work a little bit kind of out of order. My last two books, I have illustrated the entire book before I scripted them. And, I have my plot points. I know where I'm kind of going, but in my head, if I can draw 200, 300 pages of a silent story and you can follow it, then I know my storytelling is kind of working. And then the dialogue just becomes icing on the cake.
Yeah. How do you feel that you've grown as a creator from your earlier works to this one?
Just maturity. I don't know. I think there's a lot that just kind of comes with doing. I think anytime you look back at your old stuff, most creative types tend to greatly dislike their old stuff, because I think we're always kind of moving forward. There's charm in my old stories, but when it comes back to comic books, I completed my first comic book at 11 years old. It was 25 pages. It was one of those things, I think, when I said, hey, I want to do comic books. At that time in my life, I was being homeschooled, and both of my parents had been high school teachers and educators. So even though I was homeschooled, we had a pretty strict regimen at that time. My dad was a high school teacher, so we were following the exact same timeline schedule that he had in public school. And but one of the class assignments, he was like, hey, if you want to do comic books, you're going to have to make a comic book. And so he made me sit down, and it became part of my curriculum. And each week, I had all these tent poles and guidelines of you have to have X amount of pages due by this. We need to have you write a script, and you need to have the book done. And I don't know, doing that as a young kid, doing 2 or 3 books by the time I was 15, kind of helped me learn how to actually commit to a project. I mean, I look back at them today and they're pretty terrible, but there's definitely still something I can look back and go hey, I drew a 30 plus page comic book
Mhm.
at 12, 13, 14 years old. Yeah, I think just growing up, doing it, each book gets better. You start learning about who you are and what kind of stories you want to tell. And 20 plus years of working with Dirk Manning has definitely made me a stronger, just creative type person in general by, I don't know, the hundreds of pages I've done working with him through Nightmare World and Tales of Mystery and like his storytelling process and phone
Mhm.
calls and whatnot. So yeah, I just think there's a constant growth and just, I don't know, each book is a little different. So I can't say I'm like, I've improved my demon slaying comic books. This is totally different than my last couple of books. But it's also fun to have that creative control to be like, let me tell an autobiographical story in one book and let me tell a ghost story in another book. And now let me tell a, road trip crazy action, Jeff Darrow-esque Magnola type crazy adventure. So,
Oh, so one of your earlier books was autobiographical?
yes, I did do a 365 page creative nonfiction book. It is definitely not let's say a true story, but it is definitely based on my early 20s and a relationship and time of my life, and a large part of it is about trying to become a comic book artist and the inferiority, imposter syndrome and complexes and balancing life and friends and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say in terms of like autobiographical stuff, it's like if I told you a story, if I told you my story of an ex and relationship at 25 years old, and then you went and wrote a story based on it, it's probably about that accurate. It's like, oh, I got these core details, but I made up all the characters and,
Mm.
kind of told a creative nonfiction type book. So
Names were changed to protect the innocent.
yeah, some of that kind of stuff, I mean, there are definitely scenes that are completely made up, but a lot of the core elements of things I went through are definitely are in there kind of things.
So art-wise, what is your preferred method? Do you work traditionally? Do you work digitally? Do you do a hybrid?
At this point, I would say I'm pretty much 100 digitally. It has evolved many times over the years, from pencil to pen and ink to ballpoint pen to brush to, it has evolved over the years, but with the advent of Wacom tablets and then iPad, the convenience of being able to carry that iPad anywhere I go has made me 1,000 times more productive than I was ever able to be before. I can sit on the couch with my family and still be inking and drawing and making notes. I can go on vacation and sit in the room and still draw. So, yeah, at this point, it is all on my iPad. So I do try to mess around with pen and ink from time to time just to not forget what it's like and to not have the ability to tap my screen and erase and stuff like that. But the convenience of penciling and inking, yeah, just it's all digital.
So, which create comic book creators, or even in literature, kind of inspired you and um, uh, have shaped the way you do things.
Um, I mean, different times of my life have definitely had different influences. I mean, younger teenage years would have been definitely the Magnola, or not Magnola, it's a little Magnola. Definitely Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee. It was
Mhm.
early mid '90s X-Men, Spider-Man, that kind of stuff. As I got older and then like early 2000s and comic books started maturing and I started hitting college age and stuff, definitely started branching out into some different types of things. Jeff Darrow is a huge influence on a lot of my work. Yeah, Magnola, I'd say I has a huge influence, but not artistically. I am not great with light and shadow. I mean, I love his storytelling and his pacing. So there's still like a deep rooted part of that. Autobiographical guys like Jeffrey Brown was a huge influence on me in my early 20s. Scott Pilgrim, like all of a sudden, like, brain farts off the top of my head. You know, let's see, like O'Malley with Scott Pilgrim. Boy, reading old books like Akiko, Jeff Smith, reading Bone, James Kolchaka, a lot of the old indie stuff. Yeah, artistically now, I don't read as many comic books as I used to. I still read a lot of indie type books. I don't read a lot of mainstream superhero stuff, but I'm constantly blown away when I hit a comic book store. Just the talent levels of art today and just the variety of styles is always impressive. But yeah, I don't know. I look at a lot. I am a full-time tattoo artist at this point in my career, so I look at a lot of other painters and illustrators from a wide variety of different styles. Putting it down on paper, it's hard, but definitely Mignola, Darrow, Steve Dillon, Preacher, all that kind of stuff. Definitely some big influences.
Is, because you brought it up, is there any difference between tattooing and doing putting together a comic book, or are they kind of similar, just a
In
different
theory, they are a little similar. When I got into tattooing 17 or so years ago, in my head, I was like, this is going to be easy. I draw comic books. I can, same kind of like line work to coloring them in kind of thing. Dealing with people and skin is 100% different thing than a piece of paper. I can sit in my room and just do it however I want. I mean, to a certain degree, I mean, there are a lot of tattooers out there that definitely do comic book and anime and video game tattoos, and yeah, to a certain degree you are just translating that art onto skin. There is a different sense of flow from working on like a flat piece of paper canvas to what wraps around an elbow and a wrist, and nobody's a perfect cylinder, so things definitely don't translate one-to-one onto skin. A lot of what I do now is large scale. I do a lot of backs and sleeves and legs, and definitely some of my comic book influence, I think, hugely influences my tattoo styles. But the design aspect is a whole different skill set of like, how do you design something this big and then fit it over a body part? So, but there are definitely, illustration techniques definitely come in handy. Definitely kind of parallel each other. So.
And how is working on people's skin as a I guess a palette, because I mean you said you work digitally, so I mean you just can't go back and erase what you did.
No. I mean, there is very little forgiveness in skin. A lot of that just comes with experience and time. Yeah, I think, when you're young, it's just like anything. You may be a little over ambitious and you jump into things, and people come back 6 months, a year later, and you're like, boy, I really screwed the pooch on that one. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing. I think tattooing is definitely something that experience and time goes hand in hand and means a lot, because I think a lot of tattooers, their first 5 years are still just barely scratching the surface. They might be amazing tattooers, but you don't know how your stuff is going to heal until you see it a few years healed. And when I start seeing some of my clients that are now over a decade ago, I did pieces and like how those things have a life. You tattooing skin, and you do a piece of paper or something on my iPad, that never changes. I mean, if I leave a piece of paper out in the sun, it's going to weather, gets wet or something. But you put it up in a frame, that piece of art's still that same piece of art. But yeah, everybody's skin is different, and you're tattooing a moving, living piece of tissue that is constantly trying to reject the artwork that you did. So sun exposure and age and all that stuff definitely makes a difference. So there's been a lot of learning that goes with that in terms of just how to make a tattoo last is a huge part of it.
And I
Being
know
able to do a tattoo this big is different than doing a tattoo that's going to look great 10 years from now, 20 years from now, kind of thing. So it is figuring that kind of stuff out.
and I believe that, as you said, it was you have to make certain adjustments to get it on a body part rather than a flat piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. there's a lot of weird mental math. I mean, even my coworkers and people ask me all the time, do I have templates and stuff like that? And not exactly, but I've done enough of them that I kind of know my layouts of what will kind of work. But every new piece, and sometimes, like, if it's a, say, a softball size sticker going on a calf, that is, draw it, stick it. It is kind of like a sticker, as long as it looks straight, boom, tattoo it. But yeah, when you're doing like a full forearm piece, something that wraps around a full arm or a leg or a calf, yeah, there's a lot of weird mental proportion and math, and there's a lot of like, we'll see how this goes and we'll adapt it once the client's in the shop. And sometimes there's a little bit of freehand drawing, stuff like that, to make it fit, adjust proportions, stuff like that. But every tattoo is completely different and a unique beast in its own process.
So you've said that you've known Dirk for a while. When he took over SourcePoint, and did he, obviously he probably approached you or you approached him to, help get your work out there. I mean, it sounds like you have a great relationship. But so what drew you to Source? Going, being associated with SourcePoint, and what do you hope the future holds for you and the publisher?
I guess what drew me to it, a lot of it was, it was Dirk Manning. I mean, prior to him taking over, just the connections he's had with them, and just the working relationship that we've had for 20 plus years. Yeah, I mean, if he has a project, whether it was through SourcePoint or Devil's Due or Image or whoever we've put stuff out through the years, a lot of times he's like, I've got a project. This is my script. I want you to draw it. Wherever it ends up, it ends up. A lot of that has been kind of out of my hand. But his new connections with SourcePoint have been real positive. So yeah, when I did my autobiographical book in 2020, SourcePoint, he hadn't taken over at that point. I still had to go through all the channels and send it through all the upper management and have them read it. And because it was definitely not the type of book they typically put out, but they felt like, it was still a strong enough book. And it was the kind of thing that would be like one of those, like, maybe it's not a book that's going to sell 100,000 copies on day one, but it's one of those books that has like legs and could kind of be a perennial seller that just kind of, and the fact that it also speaks to like the starving artist and the comic book community, even if it's not a superhero monster book, it still speaks to that audience. I think Divinity Call Shotgun falls right in with SourcePoint with all their, I don't remember the tagline off the top of my head, but I know Dirk was like, we just want to do cool comic books for cool people, basically, like he's got this like, and it kind of is a little bit of all the above. It's like old school Image or Dark Horse, where, you've just got a whole bunch of creators making a book under a banner, but every book is cool in its own identity. So there's something kind of cool being attached to all these other books that the only real thread between them is that they're kind of badass books, that they're all fun. And, you can have a horror book and a detective book and a sci-fi book, but they're all just cool. The quality levels are, there's a certain standard there, and they're fun books. So yeah, I would love to see it grow. It's a lot. I just make the books. I don't know what it's like running the books and trying to juggle. It's hard enough for me putting out one book, let alone trying to like juggle 20 books and trying to keep. Artists are fickle people, so more power to Dirk through all this. It's a lot on his plate, but he's a good cheerleader. Half the reason we've been working for 20 plus years is he knows how to get people inspired to do their best and just do it for the passion and the love of just doing it.
So is there anything else about the book or the Kickstarter that you wanted to make sure that people knew about that maybe we didn't get to cover?
I don't know. I want people to check it out. It's a fun book. I think it will appeal to a lot of people. I know it's not the kind of book that will appeal to everybody. No book does, but somebody wants just like, fans of Hellboy and Kill Bill and Preacher and Jeff Darrow, Shaolin Cowboy, those kind of things. Like it's definitely a fun book. I think that's the best way I can describe it, is just kind of fun. It's a little bit wacky without being too wacky. It's a little violent without being too violent. You know, there's a little smidge of Kevin Smith without being too dirty. It's just kind of a, you know, it's just a fun book. So yeah, I think, you know, I'd like to, you know, every creator wants people to give it a shot. So, you know, I'd love people to go, hey, that looks like fun. It's a good time, you know.
Well, would you like to do a quick pitch for the Kickstarter as we kind of wrap up here? And where can let us know where we can find you if you are on the interwebs.
All right. You know, I mean, yeah, the pitch for Kickstarter. I mean, I'm not good with pitches, but yeah, check out this kick-ass book, you know, a little bit of religion, a little bit of road trip, a little bit of violence, yeah, some strong female leads, a little, you know, demons and taxi cabs and demonic penguins and angel squirrels and, you know, all kinds of just all kinds of stuff in it. You can find me. My personal website is artronan9.com. Pretty much everything I do is artronan9. My gamer tag, my Instagram handle, my Twitter handle, my whatever. You're gonna find me under artronan9. Kickstarter, just search Divinity Call Shotgun, or there are links on my personal website. There are links on my Instagram. There are links on my Facebook pages. Definitely in the hey, check out my book mode right now. So, you know.
Well, people can also check over at Comic Watch. I'll make sure that it gets into our weekly roundup that we put out every week at noon on Saturday. So I'll have that information link there where they can find it out along with this interview. And I want to thank you for taking the time to chat this evening, and you're welcome back anytime that you want to chat or have anything else you'd like to promote. And yeah, it was a pleasure chatting with you, and have a great evening.
Thanks for having me. Thanks a lot.